Last week I picked up a brand new novel, Dungeon Crawler Carl. For those of you not familiar, it's a lit RPG, which means it's part fantasy and part watching somebody play a tabletop RPG like Dungeons and Dragons. And as I was getting through the book, about halfway through, I realized that this book does just about everything wrong that you're taught to do when it comes to writing a novel. There's really no main antagonist. The character arcs are very, very thin. There's no climax to speak of. Really, the book is just following Carl as he completes a series of dungeons, and then it ends when he completes the last one of the book and he moves on to the second book. The character of Carl is a bit of a Mary Sue or a Marky Steve, regardless of what you want to call it. He can get out of just about any situation that he finds himself in with no problems. There's no Descent to Darkness or Dark Night of the Soul or anything like that. Throughout the book, he just kind of gets into these little boss battles and jams and finds his way out of them. And there's no real progression towards any sort of resolution at the end of the book, other than, like I said, he beats the last boss battle. Dungeon Crawler Carl is, by all accounts, one of the most haphazard books that I've ever read. And yet, I kept reading, and I finished it. And then I read the second one, and I'm now reading the third. And as I was reading the second book, a thought really occurred to me, and I think it's maybe the most important lesson that I needed to learn when it comes to my own writing, and I think it might be something that could be helpful to you all as well. For those of you who don't know, my name is Josh. I am a published writer. I've written for several websites, including Screen Rant Deserto in the past. I've had my fictional works published as well, and I am working on my debut novel. And over the last few weeks or months, as I've been kind of coming to the end of my first draft of my manuscript, I found that I am starting to question everything. The quality, I feel like everything I'm writing is not good. I have all these other ideas for stories that I think are just so much better and richer and deeper. And, you know, you get that feeling sometimes as a writer when you read your own work, thinking that what I've written is bad. And I read 2.5, now almost 3 novels of something that is, by most objective standards, not good. And yet, I'm having a blast reading it. And I talked in my first video about Agatha All Along writing, the difference between concept and execution. And to me, this is like the perfect example of a book that's neither high concept nor high execution. This book is not trying to be incredibly deep or complex. It's not even trying to honestly tell an incredible story. It's trying to tell a fun story. And it does that very effectively through its world building, through its characters, through all of the fun little Easter eggs and jokes that it includes in there. The author has just done such an incredible job of building this weird world, this weird concept, and just setting somebody loose in it and letting us play along. And it works really well, even though, you know, by the technical measures, it you know, has a lot that people would criticize. And so that made me think about my own book, which I have had my own doubts about, and which I have had my own reservations about, you know, sending to agents or sending to publishers or sending to editors. And I think that this is an incredibly key lesson that I took away from it, which is, and that lesson is summed up by the quote, "Don't let perfection be the enemy of good." I stress so much about trying to make sure that I'm following all these different rules by these great writers, and if I take this one more class, or if I watch this one other YouTube video about, you know, story structure and all of that, I'll make the book as good as it can possibly be. But this writer didn't do almost any of that. He just told a story, made it fun. So my lesson is that I need to be a lot less judgmental, number one, about other books, and number two, to give myself a little bit of a break, that if I don't follow every single rule by, you know, some writing guru or expert, if I don't, you know, do every single thing that, you know, Chuck Palahniuk or Brandon Sanderson does, that doesn't mean that my writing isn't good or can't be successful. The key is to just write, and write as good as you can, even though that doesn't make grammatical sense. That's kind of the point. You want to just write good stories, tell good stories as good as you can. And obviously this doesn't mean that you shouldn't put care and effort into them, get them edited, get them reviewed, have people read them before you publish them. But what it is to say is that you can't write the perfect book. It doesn't exist. You should try and write the best book. And that means putting the time and effort into making it as good as you can. But it also means letting go of the idea that you're not going to make mistakes in your book, or that mistakes and not following advice or rules are going to kill your book. So if you're like me and you're really stressing over how to get it exactly perfect, or even how to, plan your book out, start your book, I'm here to tell you right now, you don't have to. Just do your best. Write the best story that you want. Write the story that's sitting in your mind for years that you just want to tell. Write it down, edit it, make it as good as you can, but don't feel like you have to be tied to the rules of other writers or gurus or anything. It's not the end all and be all. The end all and be all is you and your writing in your style. So go write what you want. Write the story that you want to tell and put it on paper, make it as good as you can, have others help you. And at the end of the day, maybe it'll be something that people really like, even if it's not perfect.